Hey, Book Dragons, let's talk Stardust. But first, roll the intro. Stardust is a modern fairy tale written by the genius of Neil Gaiman. And I'm so excited to talk to you about this great book. But before I do, just make sure that if you're getting value from this video, hit the like button. Make sure to subscribe and check back for my future videos because I really would love to have you as part of the Book Dragon community. And with that being said, let's get right into the review. Stardust follows our main character, Tristram Thorn. He's a young, probably late teens, I would say, a young man, and he lives in a town called Wall. And we'll get to a little bit more about Wall, but first, the book kind of starts out talking about Tristram's father and not Tristram himself, because it gives kind of a backdrop as to where Tristram came from. And so it starts out talking about his father Dunstan Thorn, who also lives in the city called Wall. And so we follow him for a little bit at the beginning of the book, but the majority of the book talks about Tristram. The town gets its name from a wall that runs around the perimeter of the town and blocks it off from the world of fairy, from the Fey realm. Now, there is one part of the wall that has a gap. It's like there have been blocks knocked out of it or something like that. And so there's an opening that people can go through. And every so many years, there is a carnival that is put on in the world of fairy, and people from the town of Wall are allowed to pass through the opening in the wall and go to the carnival. So Dunstan Thorn is all hyped about the carnival, and he goes through the gap in the wall, or he tries to at first. He makes the attempt, and the guard doesn't let him through, but he eventually gets through, and he goes and visits the carnival, and there's a whole manner of fantastical and weird goings on. There's trinkets that the different booths are selling that come alive, so they're enchanted, and there's a whole bunch of different sites that you can see and that you can buy. You can purchase some of the enchanted items, and he happens upon a shop that sells glass flowers, and he's transfixed by them, and he decides that he's going to pick one up and give it to the woman he loves, and he asks how much it is, and there's a girl that is manning the booth for her mistress, so she's a slave more or less, and she says, well, the cost depends on you, and then she ends up offering to give it to him for the price of a kiss. And so he gives her a kiss, and then later on, as the night grows longer, he ends up encountering the girl again, and they have sex, they have sexual relations. So that is the beginning of the tale. And then a few years later, Dunstan's married and everything like that, and there comes a knock at the door, and there's a basket with a baby in it at the door, and Dunstan is a father. And so now, about 17 or 18 years later, maybe. I'm not exactly sure of how old Tristram is. It doesn't really say in the book, but he's grown now. He's living in Wall with his family, and he doesn't really know his origins, right? But he's become infatuated with this girl named Victoria, and he has promised her that he will do whatever it takes to get her to give him a kiss. And he begs and pleads and he barters and he tells her, "Oh, I'll do all this wonderful stuff." And then, come to find out, there is a star that falls from the sky and lands somewhere on the other side of the wall. And they're watching it together as it falls, and he says to Victoria, "I will do whatever it takes to get you to give me a kiss, and I will even get that star and bring it to you. I will bring you the star that we just saw fall." And she finally relents, and she agrees, "Okay, I'll give you a kiss if you bring me that star." She doesn't think he'll really do it, and so he's all excited, and he runs home, and he's ready to be off, and he's gonna go find that star. And his father finds out what's happening, and his father thinks, oh, it's time for him to go to his own land and learn about his heritage. And all Tristram's thinking is, "Hey, I'm gonna go get this star for my girlfriend," and so he does. He finally gets across the wall, and at first he's made an attempt, and they wouldn't let him pass. But then his father comes out and brings him back to the wall, and he convinces the guards to let his son pass, and so that begins Tristram's adventures outside the wall in the land of Fairy. And they are a lot of weird and wily adventures involving unicorns and an airship with sky pirates, and there's a guy that helps him on his way at the very beginning. I don't know if he's a gnome or a goblin or whatever he is, but he helps Tristram to find his way to the star via a magic candle. And once he finds the star, they're off to hopefully go back to the town of Wall and bring Victoria, his love, the apple of his eye, to bring her this star. The only problem is there are others that are looking for the star as well. There are 3 witches who digest parts of the star in order to regain their youth, and they've run out of fragments of the star that they had before, and they have just enough for one of the witches to reclaim her youth and go in search of this star to replenish their stores of star power. And so the witch is off to find the star, and by the way, the star is a young girl, actually. When Tristram finds her, she's a girl. And so the witches are off to find the star and eat her heart, and that's what will give them back their youth. And then there's a band of brothers that are out searching for the star because they are the next heirs to the throne of Stormhold, or one of them is, and their father has set them off in search of the amulet, which just happens to be in possession of the star. And so the brothers are off to find the amulet, and as they go throughout the story, they are all trying to one-up each other and kill each other off so that one of them can emerge victorious and be the new king of Stormhold. So it's just a wild and weird tale. There once were, I think, 8 or 10 brothers, and so the ghosts of the other brothers appear in the background of the story, making commentary on what's going on and who they think is going to emerge victorious. It's hilarious. It's just really great. And there's magical houses, and the witch is conjuring up all these things to try and lure the star in. And it's just such a wild and weird tale that it is just so much fun. It could only come from the mind of Neil Gaiman. So I highly, highly recommend this book. It is definitely more for adults. There is adult content in the book. And I'm going to talk about the movie here in just a few minutes. So make sure you stick around. Don't stop here, because I'm going to talk about the movie and how it compares. But just to finish talking about the book has quite a bit of content that may not be suitable for younger readers, depending on your preferences. There is a not hugely graphic sex scene, but there is a sex scene in the book. There are points where there's a lot of blood and gore that is quite furtively described. So just make sure that you're aware of that when reading this book. But I give this book a solid 4 stars. And when I'm talking about my rating system, I really should do a video on it. Maybe that'll be one of my next videos, because for me, a 5-star read is at the top of my list for books that are some of the best books I have ever read. And then the scale goes down from there. So when I get to a 4-star read, that is by no means bad at all. It is still an amazing and excellent book. It just means that I've read better, and I have read better from Neil Gaiman. But this is definitely a book that I would read again and again, and it is a solid 4-star, excellent read from me. That is my rating. So I highly recommend that you pick this book up. It's a short book. It's only I don't even think it's a full 200 pages. It might, let's see. I think it was, it's about 170 pages. So really a quick read. I highly recommend it. Now, the movie Stardust, and some of you may be out there watching this review and you're thinking, oh, I didn't know Stardust was a Neil Gaiman adaptation. And I didn't either when I first saw the movie. I've seen it 4 times now. I watched it for a 4th time after I finished the book, and it is a fantastic movie. It's one of my favorites. It always has been. But when I saw it for the first time, I didn't know it was Neil Gaiman either. But I will say that the movie is actually a very, very good adaptation of the book. I was very impressed. I did not expect the adaptation to be that close. When you go into movies that are based on books, they're not always very close to the original. It's very rare. But this movie is actually quite accurate to the book. There are some changes, of course, but the changes are minor. One of the changes I really like is, and it's a minor one, but instead of the boy being named Tristan, which is what his name is in the book, they just call him Tristan, which I think is a phenomenal choice. Tristan does not roll off the tongue well, and I think it's just a better and smoother way to say his name. So in the movie, they call him Tristan, and I think that's perfect. And there are some other parts that are rather embellished. When Tristan and the Star meet the Sky Pirates, it's a very short scene. They're just getting from point A to point B, and they happen to get passage on this airship. But in the movie, it's this long drawn out sequence. They get to know the ship's captain really well, and they get to learn more about him. And he treats them to dinner, and it turns out he's quite the flamboyant character, and he's quite well versed in women's clothing. So it's an absolutely hilarious and uproariously fun scene. Robert De Niro plays the part of the captain, and he is just phenomenal. I really like Robert De Niro as an actor, but this role was so different for him, and he played it off superbly. So that was a lot of fun. The ending was changed quite a bit from the ending in the book. There was a big battle sequence in the movie that was not in the book at the end. The end of the book didn't really end with a battle per se. They kind of faced off with the witches at one point, but then that was it. I won't spoil too much because I want you to read the book, but there was a much bigger battle sequence at the end of the movie that was a lot of fun. I think it was really well done, and I think it fit the story well. And then the very, very end was more of a they lived happily ever after kind of ending, which they're trying to make it a traditional fairy tale, and it worked well. They did an excellent job of making that change. But in the book, it was a very different. It's not your typical happily ever after, even though everybody was happy, but it wasn't your typical happily ever after ending that you get in the movie. So they both have their merits, and I highly recommend both of them. The narration is just superb in the movie. Ian McKellen does the narration, and he is just spectacular. He has the perfect voice to narrate a movie like this. And you're probably familiar with Ian McKellen. If you're not, I would be very surprised. He plays Gandalf in the Lord of the Rings movies and in the Hobbit movies. He plays Magneto in the original X-Men movies. And he's just such a superb and well-polished actor, and his voice acting is just as good. So I think you'll really like the narration in the movie. One thing I will say too, the movie is much more PG-13 than the book. You will not find this to be a movie that is not suitable to watch in most cases as a family. There may be exceptions, but for the most part, it's a really great family movie. And so some of the things that were more adult in the book are toned down much more in the movie. I mean, you still have the interaction between Dunstan, Tristram's father, and the fairy woman, and it's still implied that they did the deed, but it's not shown in any detail, and a lot of the gore is completely left out of the movie. In fact, one thing that was really funny, and I kind of wondered about this, I don't know if I really paid much attention to it the first few times I watched the movie, but like in the movie, when some of the characters bleed, they bleed blue, and I'm like, okay, was that done intentionally to tone down the gore? I don't know, but in any case, fantastic movie. I give the movie a solid 4 stars as well. I would definitely watch it again. I'm one of those guys that if I really like a movie, I'll watch it over and over and over. There's some movies that I've watched 50 plus times because they're that good. I don't know if I might ever get that many times with Stardust, but you never know. I'm not that old yet, so I've got plenty of years to rewatch Stardust, but I don't know if I'll ever get that many watches in. Any case, that is my review for Stardust, the book and the movie. Let me know what you think in the comments. Have you read the book or watched the movie? What are your thoughts on it? Is this your first time realizing that Stardust is a Neil Gaiman book? And if it is, now you know. And I'd love for you to dialogue with me in the comments below. I will leave links to where you can purchase the book and a link to where you can find the movie if you're interested in watching the movie. And I really hope you get a chance to check it out. Make sure to stay tuned for future videos of mine. I've got some great content planned for my upcoming videos. And until then, I'm Chaz, signing off. And make sure that you're reading more books, guys. Take care. Bye.